We had a little microphone issue. Everything seems to be working okay. Still working on getting my new microphone. That'll come someday. I've got to do my research. I had a suggestion, something to do with a Yeti. I thought that was the abominable snowman, but apparently there's a microphone called the Yeti. So we'll see. Then there's some other ones out there. Some of them that kind of flash different colors. Leslie Plazz here. Yeah, Zazoo Plazz. Here for my May 17th, 2026 Zazoo Plazz report. It's a little warm today here in Connecticut. I'm wearing my new shirt that my son got me for Mother's Day. It's one of those like fancy wool wicking hiking shirts. It's cool. I got the long sleeve shirt on because I got the AC on, but yeah, it's great. It fits me great. He got me a small. It fits me perfectly. Let's see, got my big socks on today. I'm breaking out the capris. There's this comic, this guy Bob Marley, this comedian that I follow. He talks about, he's Gen X. He talks about his relatives. You know, they're from Maine or Massachusetts, whatever. He's got this aunt, I don't know. He makes up names for them. They're like Aunt Teresa and Aunt Dottie or something. And he said, you know, the minute it starts getting warm, he's got to wear my capris. He's hilarious. I had a shout out to him because I just like spit out my coffee when I capris. My mom's generation, the silent generation. Our parents were born in the very late 30s, and all the women wore those. You know, they called them pedal pushers. My mom, you know, she was in her I don't know, through her 60s, 70s. She had nice pants. She had, like what about May, June, she'd break out the capris. And she had nice ones, though, you know, and then the sweater ensemble, you know. My mother was very well dressed, but I don't know why I'm talking about this, but yeah, Suns and Taurus. So maybe, you know, Suns and Taurus. The moon, we had the new moon in Taurus yesterday. And now Mercury, conjunct Mercury. So, you know, we got that going on. Mercury and Mercury's going into Gemini. So we had the new moon in Taurus at the very end of Taurus. And then now it's in Gemini, conjunct with Mercury, the moon, Mercury, and we have Uranus in Gemini. My kids were making fun of me the other day. Yeah, so I was talking about my mom. I'll get back to that. You know, I said something about Uranus and Gemini to my sons when they were over for Mother's Day, and they're making fun of me. When the two of them are together, they kind of gang up on Mom, like, she just said Uranus. That's the kid. And it's very different when there's the two boys together and me. They're like, they act like I'm not even in the room. They're like, you know, like Beavis and Butthead. She just said Uranus. Hey, did you hear what Mom just said? And usually it's something to do with technology, like, Mom knows about Wooksmaxing. You're not on TikTok. Do you know? I said, I know what's on TikTok. We're going into Gemini season. I TikTok. I'm not on there, but I know what's on there. I have other ways. Stuff filters down onto YouTube and other places, and I see these compilations, so I know. Without getting sucked into it, I know what's on there, you know? And now and then I'm able to talk to my kids about it. So just a heads up, we're headed into Gemini season, which is a male sign. And just to give you a little, those of you who are adept at astrology, okay, so just a heads up, I might stray quite a bit today. Because Mercury's in Gemini, my North Node is in Gemini. So, it's opposite. My Mercury is at the beginning of Sag, opposite where Mercury is right now. I've got Mercury, moon opposite my Mercury. Okay, so anyway, but I had a lot of good insights. So if you can hang on till the end of this ride, it'll be worth your while. Because I'm very curious naturally, but especially when Mercury and the sun goes into Gemini. It's going to be blah, blah, blah. But when I go and I Google Gemini, it comes up with Google Gemini. It's a thing. Oh boy, she's on a roll today. Oh, did I say it was May 17th, 2026? Yes, I did. Venus is also in Gemini, but it's more toward going into Cancer. So there's that. Yeah. So, yeah, the new moon was all about, because it was in Taurus, something's flying around my place here. There's a bug. There's a bug flying around my apartment. How the hell did it flying around? It's the Holy Spirit. Or a moth. I'm seeing a lot of those white moths flying around. But anyway, the point I was gonna right. Okay, so I start with my little stories. But new moon in Taurus, it was about thinking about how we define abundance and wealth and security, values. That's what Taurus is about, So, like, what's important to you, what do you think of, what's a successful life? How would you feel secure? Taurus wants to feel secure, So I'm going to write out my new moon check later, and then I'm going to meditate on this a little bit. I light my candle. I do these rituals every new moon, and then I go back and I'm thankful. I sit down and I project at the new moon what I want to manifest under grace and perfect ways with harm to none, and all this stuff. And then I just let it go and see what happens. I just let it go, and then at the next new moon, I look back at the month before and I see all the stuff that's happened. All the good stuff that's happened. It's good. It's a good ritual. I think we as a society, we've gotten away from seeing things as sacred and having rituals. Everybody used to go to church, and so we gave away our, we used to have church, they did it for us, right? The priests, everything that was church. But we don't, we can have our own rituals, right? We don't need somebody to do it for us. We can do it for ourselves. Make a little altar. What's important to you? What's sacred? What practices? Maybe you have crystals, Taurus is about all grounding into, into your senses, So like I have a diffuser. I have, I put different oils in there. I have crystals. I have tarot cards. Different things that I do. Different, foods that I eat at certain times or drink, things, you know what I mean. I say, grace before I eat. That's a way to kind of ground in and just be present. Going out, taking walks, and just looking at all the beautiful, flowers and smelling the beautiful. Everything smells so good. It's like perfume this time of year. Then you see and hear the birds, and it's sensual, right? And then you have, fresh fruit and seasonal things that you eat, right? So, yeah, those are all ways to kind of, think about, those sensual things and what you like to have around you, And it doesn't have to be expensive. But it just has to be meaningful, right? It has to make you feel good. For me, it's, music is one of those things. So I got a song today that, it's meaningful to me when I was a kid. And I guess it's National Prayer Day or something. But, for me, it's every Sunday, or every day. It could be prayer day. It doesn't have to just be one day that somebody says, oh, the country's going to pray today, come on, God's up there. No, Jesus taught us to pray, Our lives are prayers. We offer, every day, whatever we do, we can offer it up as praise to God, right? And we can make up our own prayers. We don't have to say a set prayer, We can just talk to God in our own way. Make a poem, write a poem, just write a letter to God, or just sit and listen to music and just be, I find being in nature, that's the closest you can get. Go out to nature and, sit there and just be, and see what comes. Anyway, so when I did that, I went out last night. I did my laundry. I have to go out there. I'm all happy. I'm coming back. And I hear this crying, this lady crying and screaming. And it was about 10:30 at night. So there was a couple. She was in the car and he was standing next. And she was crying. They must have been breaking up because she was crying about something. And I said, those are the two that I've heard fighting. Like, I'm in my office and I hear two people fighting. Raised voices, all days of nights, mostly nights, I said, that's who. I thought it was my neighbors over here, but it was those two. They were out there for half an hour, and I said, I don't need that drama. I just don't need it. They were young, probably Gen Z or millennials, I don't know. Maybe older Gen Z. It's hard to tell. Fairly young, maybe in their 20s, late 20s maybe. She's all going on. I'm like, ah. Now, I appreciate my peace. And I said, what is she getting all worked up for? She didn't know. Move on. It's not worth it. Today is a hypertension awareness day. Not worth getting your blood pressure all worked up over relationships. It's just not. Go get somebody better. You deserve better. Both of them. Anyway, what was I saying? And that was all. The other thing, I ordered my groceries, and every time I place an order, that one time, a few weeks ago, they brought the wrong damn pasta. They brought me rigatoni instead of penne. I mean, they're nothing. Rigatoni's like this thick. It's like this big around. Penne is like this. And then they brought me the whole milk Greek yogurt, instead of my non-fat. So whoever's picking out the groceries thinks, close enough, right? No. This is my rant for the day. So today, they bring me, I ordered calcium and vitamin D enriched, now no pulp orange juice, which is the only kind I drink. It's like Tropicana or whatever. They bring me no pulp, but no calcium and vitamin D. No. Stop it. now I got to figure out, now I got this. So I got half, then I'm lying in bed thinking, how am I going to hack this? Because you're not allowed to put customer comments anymore. The past few times I went to put a damn comment to tell them they got the wrong thing. You get redirected to this AI chatbot thing, and you put your comment in and it goes into the Ethernet, never to be seen again. And that's not good. That is not right. If they bring me the wrong damn thing, they should be accountable. I should be able to get my money back and get the damn thing that I want. So now I got to add orange juice to my list of things that I got to go get down the street because they seem to be incapable. Whoever's picking out the groceries can't read. People used to have pride in doing a good job, and now I wonder if people, he's probably looking at his phone. He's like, it's close enough. They don't have pride in their work. They don't care. Customer service is no longer important to people. Come on, that's one thing that's important to me. When my food is not settled, I'm very unsettled, especially during tourist season. I gotta have certain food, and and they didn't even put it as an out of stock thing. They just threw in the wrong thing and hoped that I wouldn't notice. Yes, of course I noticed. Pissed me off. So I had that in my craw, and I'm just hopping on here, and I'm going to use my platform to say, no, close enough is not right. It's not good enough. And I'm going to keep hounding them until I either get a replacement, I get my money back. Because, you let them slide this much, and they'll take this much. Okay, this is Gen X. This is why they don't market to us, right? Because we see through all the BS. Speaking of BS, graduation. See what I did there? Yeah. Okay, Zazoo. Orange juice. Okay. I think what I'm going to end up doing is calling customer service, telling them off, and speaking my piece, and then just combining a little, because they're the same calories, the same everything. It's just that they put calcium and vitamin D on one carton. It's the same thing. So I think I'll just mix them together. So if in fact there was some trace calcium and vitamin D in the other kind, then they'll combine. It's the same thing. I find ways to get around things, but I have to let my voice be heard because maybe other people are experiencing this, but I'm actually going to do something about it. I'm going to make it known. Okay. There. Customer service has, I do like Stop and Shop. I do like the supermarket. I like their produce. I like their meat. I like everything. But since they moved from the truck to these DoorDash, these Dash people, they come in with their cars and they rip all my bags and everything's wet. No. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Okay, on to the Bible. No, did I tell all my stories? No, I never do. Oh, what was the thing I was going to talk about? Okay, I guess that's it. So, what was I talking about? I'm hungry. I need my paleo hot chocolate snack, my cashew butter rice cake. I'll get that, but I gotta earn it first. There goes my fridge. Okay. So I learned a lot today. That was pretty good. So Acts of the Apostles, we find ourselves, it's the Sunday of the Ascension of the Lord, of Jesus' ascension. Okay. So Luke wrote the Gospel of Luke. He was a doctor and he traveled with St. Paul around, friend of St. Paul, traveling companion. And he also wrote Acts of the Apostles. It is pretty much, they pretty much know that. He wrote those two books. And he wrote them for he addressed those books to his friend Theophilus, who was a Gentile. And it's kind of like, when I write my stories, which are kind of like little essays, little parables, little humorous parables, I like to think that I'm talking to somebody, like somebody's listening. I don't know who's listening. It's almost like I'm talking to God, but I'm sort of, reporting. It's like I'm from another galaxy or something, and I'm down here and I'm reporting back to the motherland, or to the universe, to my my ship, or my planet, to the highest echelons of the spirit, up to God. Basically, I'm reporting back to God on what I've discovered and found out about the people of Earth. And I kind of imagine that, it's like my travel log, star date, whatever. So, Luke was kind of doing that. He said, this is what I found out about this man Jesus, from following him around all this time. And, getting to know, so he wanted to provide a record of Jesus' life, up through the time that he was, he died, and his resurrection, and after, and his appearances to his apostles, after his resurrection. And so, this is interesting. So, Jesus told the apostles to wait in Jerusalem. See, Gemini can be a very impatient sign. It's important. He told them, stay in Jerusalem, just stay there and wait for the promise of my Father. He said, in a few days, you'll be baptized in the Holy Spirit. He was predicting Pentecost happening, but he can't give them too much information because they can't handle it yet, because they haven't, he's had the Holy Spirit, filter messages through to them, but they can't handle too much yet because they haven't been, their initiation isn't complete. They've been baptized, in water, but they haven't yet had the baptized anointing with the Holy Spirit, So he said, so they're asking him, Lord, are you going to restore the kingdom of, Israel? They're thinking as Jews. They're not thinking as Christians yet, because they're still thinking. They're getting there, but they're a little bit all the time. They're getting closer. But he says, no, it's not for you to know the time. It's only for God to know, the time that things are going to happen when they happen, But they're curious. This is Gemini. They're asking all these questions. They're getting caught up in the brain, which is Gemini, right? The logical mind. All the time. When's it going to happen? Who's going to come? When are you going to come? When's it going to happen? He says, just never mind. Just, you'll know when it's time, right? But he reassures them that they will be his witnesses to what's happened. In other words, they'll be empowered, and their testimony is going to be necessary to tell people what they saw. They were there, right? So then it says that he was, they're talking to Jesus, and all of a sudden he's lifted up into a cloud, and then they're standing there watching, and then probably angels, 2 men in white, stood there. 2 men in white, coming to take them somewhere. Say, men of Galilee, why are you standing there looking at the sky? He's not, he'll come back. He'll come back the same way he went up. He said, what are you standing there with your mouths wide open, catching flies? Kind of like, when you see a plane or something, the plane, or, when I go out and, I look at the stars at night, you're standing there, it's awesome, right? That they were in awe. And that is really what awesome means, is that probably that sight of Jesus going up, in the cloud. Before the cloud meant the place where you store your, stuff. So, anyway, the psalm is God mounts his throne to shouts of joy, a blare of trumpets for the Lord. So there's, the psalm talks about praise and gladness, clapping and praise and trumpets blare. It's kind of like, a graduation ceremony, right? When you finally, you go to get your diploma, you go up on the podium, right? You're up high, everybody's looking at you. Oh, wow. It's an achievement, right? You've earned that. Like Jesus earned that. He suffered for that. He died for that, right? And when I'm thinking about my own graduation, it was 39 years tomorrow. And yeah, I was happy, I was glad, and I was joyful that day. My parents weren't so happy. They had to book a hotel room, drive up to Boston, along with millions of other, I don't know, there were thousands of parents and people in that stadium. I don't know if they saw me. And then we, Boston College, we had thousands of people. We were sitting in the football field. We all filed in. We had speakers and stuff talking to us. And then I remember we all tossed our caps. I think tossed our caps as a class. I don't remember. I think we had our big thing, and then we went to our individual school graduations. So we were all together as a class out in the football field, and then we went to the I think it was Conti Forum, where they had the basketball games. And my parents were way up at the balcony somewhere, the school of management. And my father didn't take any something happened to his camera. Either he took the pictures, and then like the film, something happened, he dropped it, or it opened up and the film fell out and it wasn't finished yet. And all the pictures got exposed. I haven't been able to get a straight answer from him. I don't know what happened because I was, busy. All I remember that day, I remember being in the car on the way home and my mom yelling at my dad because we had to cross the T tracks, the subway tracks, across from the college to get, that's right, we had to get, we wanted to cross over to my apartment and get my stuff, but my apartment was on the opposite side of the street from the college, so my dad had to go up and cross over, and my mother was a nervous wreck because the train was coming. My dad was waiting for the traffic, and he's, stranded he's straddling the T tracks. And I remember being in the back seat and finding out that my dad didn't have any pictures from my graduation at the same moment that my folks were stranded in the car, and for crying out loud, Pauline, let me drive, blah, blah, blah. Anybody who's driven in Boston, okay, it's not, especially on graduation weekend, it's not fun. Anyway, and it wasn't Boston proper, it was, oh great, she's back. It was, suburbs of Boston, but anyway, so let's see, and the effusions. So we're talking about graduation. My son's girlfriend is graduating from Yale tomorrow. He's going down. He's going to go to the graduation and take pictures with his phone, which is a lot better than the cameras that we had. So, congratulations to her. She's getting her bachelor's of arts in art. In art. I think she did. I think she did her thesis or her final project on Vietnamese art, because she's Vietnamese, American. So I'll be thinking about them tomorrow. Let's see. So Ephesians. It says St. Paul. He's asking asking God for a spirit of wisdom and revelation to know God, to be, this is what he's wishing for the people, that they'll know God and have knowledge, and that's Gemini, for their eyes to be opened to, the benefits of, or the hope, the future, and the inheritance, the riches and the abundance that comes from, faith, having faith in Jesus, right, Christ. And Christ was the example, right? So, he's also, he's been risen, right, to this. Would you just go? Someday I'll be able to do my damn report without clomping and stomping. So anyway, so he's high up. He's the example of how to be, and the rewards that can come from keeping the faith. Okay, big clodhopper feet. Okay, so then we have Matthew 28. So the disciples, they go up on a mountain, right, and they're worshiping. They say they worship, Christ, but they're doubting. They're kind of, they're reverent, but they're still kind of having doubts. Clump, clump, clump. So Jesus approaches them and says, by the power that he has, he says, go do your work. Make disciples of all the nations, baptized, in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teach them what I told you. He says, teach them what I taught you, right? So go, and I'll be with you. He said, I'll be keeping an eye on you. Don't worry. Just go do your thing. Do what you do, because only you can do it. So, and the same thing is true for us, right? Would you stop pumping on my damn head? She's uncanny. No matter what damn time I do my freaking report, I gotta deal with this. Anyway, so then I figured, I found out doing my Facebook post today that when I was a kid, I remember hearing this song. It was from Day by Day. And it was on the radio a lot. Godspell. So the first performance off-Broadway of Godspell was May 17th, 1971, at the Cherry Lane Theater. I don't know, I was five that year. I don't remember much, but I do remember that song. Apparently it was, the song is a big hit, and then, so 1971, it started off Broadway, and then it went to a different theater, and then it went to regular Broadway, and then they made a movie of it in 73. So this song, I think I played it on the organ when I started learning the organ, which was, around 73, 73-ish, 74. I remember it was, I had this, book of hippie organ songs, with, the big boomer, disco hairdo lady on the cover of it, with groovy letters. This is Gen X. Those of us who were, little kids in the early 70s, we remember all these hippie songs, It's, I vaguely remember seeing that Godspell head. It's like a clown head, places. But that song, we sang it in church. We used to have folk masses, with people playing guitar, because they were trying to keep the boomers interested in church. Now, So I was a little kid. We'd go to church, like even like Saturday night folk mass or something. You know, we'd go for years. And I remember sitting there in church and hearing the folk music. That we'd have on Sunday they'd have like the Oregon traditional music, but on Saturday night, like 7:30, you'd go and they'd have long hair kind of teenagers playing guitars. So that's what I grew up with as a little kid, listening. This is kind of a casual sort of hip, that was church. And it was on the radio too. These types of songs were on the radio. But it's cool. It's a cool song. It's very, I hear it now and it's soothing, right? It brings me back to my childhood. It was on actually the 1972. Okay, it was a single. It was released as a single from the original cast album. The Broadway album, and it went gold by December 12th, 1972. They sold 500,000. It was spent 4 weeks on the Billboard 100, got to number 13. So that, but Godspell, okay, so the music and lyrics were by Stephen Schwartz, and the book was written by John Michael Tebelek. I know. I guess there was some kind of. I guess there was a production in Toronto that Gilda Radner and Martin Short and some other people were in. This is all news to me. I never do any of this stuff. Okay, but thanks to the internet, now I know. So Godspell was kind of like Jesus and his followers they're all clowns and they're jumping. Patches and face paint. They're all jumping around. I kind of remember like seeing them on like maybe Mike Douglas or one of those shows. I found some videos. I'll post some stuff. And then of course over the years there have been many other productions of Godspell throughout the 2000s. Even high school and Broadway productions of it, I guess, all over the place. So it's become a classic. But I mean Jesus is as a harlequin, right? As a clown. It's really, the concept. And, okay, this is interesting. This blew me away, all right? So I was watching a video. They said the woman, one of the women she was one of, like the lead female. And I'll post it. She's talking about filming the movie in 1972 and all over New York. I guess it was in New York City. And they took them to the top of the World Trade Center. They're in the top of the world. This is perfect for the ascension. She said they didn't have the elevator going all the way up to the top of the towers yet. Well, they took it part way, and then they had to climb ladders to get onto the roof. And you see them in this video. Watch the video. It blew my mind. They're dancing, and there's just this little fence, just a little ledge. And she said, "Oh, I had fear of heights, and I had to go up there, and they're all dancing and hopping around, and they're this close to the edge of the World Trade Center." And then they pan out, I guess, and you see the towers, and you see them on the top of the towers, dancing and doing somersaults and flips and everything. And I'm like, talk about history being made. And that was something that did not come out when the towers fell. The fact that they had filmed that the Godspell movie on top of the World Trade Centers. And I'm going, my mouth was like, like this. I don't know how many people, are aware of that, but I guess this is boomer history. Maybe, I think it was relevant to me because, I never saw the movie. I was 6 years old when it came out. 6, 7, maybe 7. It came out in 73. I was, 7 years old. So anyways, all these things, wow. Um, yeah, so that was, so watch those videos. I'll see what I can find. But that just blew my mind, man. But if you think about it, right? Gemini's the twins, the twin towers. How perfect is that, right? I mean, the more you learn, the more it's just amazing. But I talked a little too much. Oh, it's Gemini season anyway. Yapped a little too much today. But I'm going to go. I'm done for now. I'm going to go take a walk, take a hike later. And so I'll be back next week. Same place. Different time. Go out. Have a great week. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.